Good evening, everyone. Welcome to it's still regular, I suppose. Welcome to the Liquor Commission hearing for Monday, May 8th, 2020. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Simpson, roll call, please.
Okay, Commissioner Kruger? Present. Commissioner Papantos? Here. Commissioner Vito?
Here.
Commissioner Lang?
Here.
Commissioner Rafato?
Here.
Commissioner Vogel?
Here.
Chairperson Horker?
Here. You have before you the minutes of the special meeting of the Liquor Commission for March 2nd, 2020. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Trustee Vogel, second. Trustee Papantos. Roll call.
Commissioner Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
There we go.
Yes.
Commissioner Lang?
Yes.
Commissioner Rafato?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel?
Yes.
Chairperson Horker?
Yes.
There are no citizens.
Sorry.
She's not for the Liquor Commission, is she?
This
No?
is just
Okay.
the,
Are you asking about citizen comments and concerns?
I think this is not for the liquor.
There's none for the Liquor Commission, correct?
As far as I know, that's correct.
Okay. New business?
New business.
6A, annual renewal of liquor licenses 2020 to 2021.
Manager Spondilis.
Thank you. As the title indicates, this is our annual renewal of all existing liquor licenses within the Village of Wheeling. Typically, this would happen during the month of April, but we, as part of our package for addressing some of the concerns during the pandemic times, we have added a month to the current license, which expires now at the end of May. This license will then hold a business current through April 30th of 2021. This is all liquor licenses in the Village of Wheeling, with the exception of St. Joseph the Worker, which will be handled separately under new business item 6B.
Do we have any questions? Comments? If we have no questions or comments, I need a motion for approval. Saw raised hand, gets the motion. Second, Trustee Papantos. Roll call.
Okay, this is Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Kruger, Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Lang?
Yes.
Commissioner Rafato?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel? Abstain. Commissioner...
No, Vogel.
He doesn't need to abstain.
No, he doesn't have to abstain?
votes.
Not on this.
Okay. Commissioner Vogel?
That was a yes.
Okay.
He's muted.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, now the next one.
Can I vote?
Mute auto.
Huh?
Can I vote? Yes.
Oh, Chairperson Horker.
I'm good. Yes.
I'm going in and out.
Item B,
Item B, please.
renewal of liquor license for St. Joseph the Worker Catholic Church, 2020 to 2021. That's where I got confused. Okay.
It's all right. Manager Spondilis.
Thank you. This is the same as the previous item, but for the independent business of St. Joseph the Worker. This was separated because a member of our board has an interest at the church, and this provides him the opportunity to abstain from the motion. Otherwise, it is the same requirement that application materials, including attachments, be submitted and satisfactory background checks be completed for all responsible parties.
Any questions? If there are no questions or comments, motion?
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Papantos. Second, Trustee Kruger. Roll call, please.
Okay. Commissioner Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito,
Yes.
Commissioner Lang,
Yes.
Commissioner Raffato,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel,
Abstain.
Chairperson Horker.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item C,
Yes, please.
consideration of a request for a Class B liquor license from XO Restaurant and Banquet Hall Incorporated.
Manager Spondilis.
Thank you. XO is an existing business at the Lexington Commons Shopping Center. They are looking to expand their banquet business to include a deli area that will serve meals to walk-in customers during regular hours. Consequently, their existing Class M liquor license is no longer the best fit, and they are looking for an appropriate Class B liquor license. I would ask that a motion to approve be conditioned upon, 1, the submittal of all application materials, and 2, the passage of an ordinance by the Board of Trustees authorizing the creation of a new Class B liquor license, and the petitioner is in the audience if you have any questions.
I see trustee Papantos, yes?
Please.
You have some
Thank you.
questions?
Yes, how many seats are going to be available for walk-in?
Could you hear that?
I mean, as
Yes.
far as a restaurant goes.
For the restaurant, like the separate part of the deli, it's going to be like around 8,100 seats. It's
I'm sorry, how many?
How many?
80.
80.
80, yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I see no one else interested, so I need a motion for approval.
So moved with conditions.
Trustee Kruger, second.
Second.
Trustee Raffato, roll call, please.
Commissioner Kruger,
Yes.
Commissioner Papantos,
Yes,
Commissioner Vito,
Yes.
Commissioner Lang,
Yes.
Commissioner Raffato,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel,
Yes.
Chairperson Horker.
Yes. Congratulations, ma'am. Thank you for
Thank you
coming.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item D, consideration of an automatic temporary emergency licenses for all Class A, B, and C liquor licenses holders to allow the delivery of alcoholic liquor for off-premises consumption in conjunction with a food order.
Trustee Mr. Spondilis.
Thank you. Again, in an attempt by the village to help in any way that it can, its business community, and taking immediate effect is before you this evening an opportunity to allow all restaurant liquor license holders to provide packaged liquor as part of any food order for pickup or delivery. Currently, Village Code does allow this type of sale, but for those that have a D4 license. So really, we're just expanding on a program that already exists within the village. And again, this allows for packaged liquor, meaning only beer and wine, to be sold with a food order for curbside pickup or delivery by all restaurant business license holders. The board will then consider the same temporary expansion of the license during the regular meeting to follow this. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Trustee Kruger first, then Trustee Papantos. Trustee Kruger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Manager Spondilis, you said beer and wine only. I was thinking about Mai Tais from Bob Chin's. Does that not qualify?
I can answer.
Sure.
Trustee Kruger, this license comes about as a result of a program that the State Liquor Commission has sanctioned during the pandemic. The regulations that the state provided to us to work with provide that liquor has to be provided in its original packaging, and it can't be repurposed, which essentially the Bob Chin's Mai Tais are made with liquor that originally came in packaging and then was put into Bob Chin packaging. So we talked about this at the staff level. That would not be allowed. And the way we wrote this, Manager Spondilis, it's not a beer and wine only. It's any liquor. It could be hard liquor as well.
My apologies.
So I'm sorry, it is beer and wine. So the answer is no to the hard liquor, not for the beer and wine limitation, but due to the state regulation. Thank you, sorry about that.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kruger. Trustee Papantos, you are next.
Thank you. I just want to take Trustee or Commissioner Kruger's question one step further. Currently, I believe Bob Shins does have a D4 license, and they sell their Mai Tais not in a glass to go, but in a bottle. So that would not count?
Well, if they cannot do it with this overlay license. This overlay license is a special program that the state has initiated and allowed local commissioners or commissions to employ. It provides that you can only provide liquor provide liquor at curbside or to home delivery in the original packaging. The Bob Chin's Mai Tais are made from a liquor that originally came in a bottle. It's not the original packaging of liquor. So under this overlay license, Trustee Papantos, that would not count. To the extent Bob Chin's is doing it under their D4, we're not taking their privileges away. This is providing a privilege to those that don't have it, the restaurants, the A, B license holders, the taverns that also provide food. We're giving them an opportunity to deliver or sell liquor curbside with food for a limited period of time. And that's going to end at the time that the license holders are able to operate at 100% capacity. That we're not sure when that's going to be, but this is a very limited program to give some relief during the pandemic.
Thank you. And when will our restaurants be notified of this, or do they already know?
We will make sure that everyone is notified tomorrow because this can go into effect immediately. So we will make sure that everyone is made aware tomorrow morning. Many are already aware from previous conversations with our Economic Development Department and other staff. So it'll be an easy task for us in the morning.
Great. And thank you to staff for taking care of this and trying to help the local businesses. I think we should all try to do as much as we can right now. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Commissioner Papantos. Do we have any other questions or comments? If there are no other questions or comments, we need a motion for approval on the item D.
So moved.
Give the motion to Trustee Rufato, second to Trustee Commissioner Papantos. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Lang?
Yes.
Commissioner Rufato?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel?
Yes.
Chairperson Horker?
Yes. That concludes the work for the Liquor Commission for the evening. I would like a motion to adjourn from the Liquor Commission.
So moved.
Motion, Commissioner Kruger, second.
Second.
Commissioner Rufato. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
There we go.
Unanimous. And what time is it?
Liquor Commission adjourned.
6:44.
There's something for the sound.
Just-
What? That's okay, I'll talk a little bit.
All right, go ahead.
I'd now like to call to order the regular meeting for the Village of Wheeling, May 18th, 2020. Are we all set?
We're good to go.
We're good to go. Roll call, Clerk Simpson.
Trustee Kruger?
Present.
Trustee Papantos?
Present.
Trustee Vito?
Here.
Trustee Lang?
Here.
Trustee Rufato?
Here.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
President Horker?
Here. Approval of the minutes. You have before you the minutes of the regular meeting for May 4th, 2020. Need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Vogel, second, Trustee Papantos. Roll call.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
We do, President Horker. The petitioner for item 13E at 300 Alderman Lane called and asked to be removed from the agenda, citing the need for additional time before presenting before the board. So I ask that it be removed from the agenda.
We have a motion, please.
Motion for the removal.
So moved.
Motion trustee Kruger, second.
Second.
Trustee Rufato, roll call.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lane?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Proclamations, Clerk Simpson.
National Public Work Weeks, May 17th through May 23rd, 2020. Whereas the service provided by the Public Works personnel in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works programs and systems such as water, sewer, streets, engineering, urban forestry, public buildings, and fleet maintenance, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of a community greatly depends on these facilities and services, especially in times of flooding, snow and ice control, or water distribution for fire protection, business and residential use, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, maintenance, and construction, are dependent upon the efforts and skills of public work employees, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is influenced and supported by citizens' attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And whereas this year marks the 60th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Pat Horker, President of the Village of Wheeling, does hereby proclaim May 17th through May 23rd, 2020 as National Public Works Week in Wheeling, and calls upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works, and recognizes the contributions which public works employees make to our health, safety, welfare, and quality of life.
Thank you, Clerk Simpson. Citizens' concerns and comments.
Members of the public may advise the board with comments regarding issues relevant to village business. No citizens shall speak for more than 5 minutes without consent of the board. Members of the general public who wish to address the board must sign the request to speak from prior to the commencement of the public meeting.
Just as a reminder, this is a time for the citizens to make their comments and express concerns, and for the board to listen. Neither board nor staff will be answering questions. Good evening, sir. Thank you for taking advantage.
Good evening.
Mr. Faden?
Yes.
Okay.
I
To the microphone.
attempted to email.
No, to the microphone, it's fine.
Sure.
We're going to try and keep this
comments
as normal.
To you earlier today, and I apologize if you got multiple copies. If you didn't get a copy, because my email wasn't working well, I have copies here. Good evening. I'm Rogers Faden. I'm a tenant of Chicago Executive Airport, and I speak solely for myself and don't represent any organization. I read recently some comments by resident Steve Neff that he made to the board last month, which were reported and summarized in a Daily Herald article on the 21st. These prompted me to look further into the matter, and I'd like to discuss a series of events that culminated in awarding a contract for PR services by the Executive Airport Board. If you haven't seen these items, please allow me to explain and why they're important. The timeline is, on October 2018, Southgate Strategies, a PR and communications company, was registered in Illinois. Southgate had two principals, Cody Rogers and the Airport Board Chairman, Court Harris. According to the website, the two principals served in the U.S. Army following graduation from West Point, where they were classmates. In November of 2018, Comavia, the airport's PR firm for the previous 4 years, terminated its agreement with the airport. I heard the airport dismiss Comavia for cause, but upon further investigation, that turned out not to be true. On March 8th of last year, the airport board created an RFP for PR services. 2 weeks later, on March 21st, Insight PR was registered in Illinois, listing a single principal, Cody Rogers. On March 29th, the airport received its first response to its RFP from Veronica Vera, a woman with 12 years PR experience, including 2 years as communication director for the state of Illinois and 2 years as director of communication for Congressman Peter Roskam. In an email I've seen, Ms. Vera said that she was contacted by Court Harris, a personal acquaintance, and asked to submit a proposal. On April 1st, Insight PR submitted its proposal. On April 15th, Chicago Executive Airport Board meeting, Cody Rogers was introduced as the recommended recipient of the PR services contract. No mention was made of any other respondents to the RFP. Notable to the questions asked of Cody Rogers by board members was that when he indicated he had no experience with airports or public bodies, and that the airport would actually be his first client. Also significant at that board meeting was the absence of Court Harris, as was a lack of any disclosure of Harris's personal business relationship with Cody Rogers. According to subsequent comments made by directors Neil Katz and Ray Lang, the board was not made aware of these relationships. The board approved the hiring of Cody Rogers. 1 month later, they adopted a resolution approving the contract. In the case of the airport hiring Cody Rogers, there are a number of issues that prominently jumped out at me. Court Harris had a long-standing personal and business relationship with Cody Rogers. He failed to disclose that relationship to either the airport board, municipal boards, or the public. And he facilitated the hiring of a critical member of the airport team, a person who would be the public contact, who owed his allegiance to the board chairman before he was even hired. Based on the facts I've uncovered, I can think of 3 possibilities for Court Harris's actions. 1, he was oblivious to the appearance of a conflict of interest or the questionable ethics of this action. Or 2, he failed to comprehend or chose to ignore the ethical problem of creating an obligation on the part of a vendor that reports to someone else. Or 3, he deliberately planned and executed a plan to hire a friend and an associate, demonstrating knowledge of that effort's impropriety by hiding his association from his own board, the airport owners, and the public. Any of those 3 possibilities indicate either a lack of awareness of ethical norms or a lack of moral conduct that should be necessary to perform as chairman of the CEA board. As members of the municipal board, it's incumbent upon you to decide if Court Harris's behaviors have been acceptable. If, as I do, you find them unacceptable, I urge you to do the right thing and remove the chairman. If, however, you believe the chairman's behavior lives up to your ethical standards, you'll demonstrate this by keeping Court Harris in place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
No staff reports. Consent agenda. Clerk Simpson.
Okay. 11, consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered after all other agenda items. 11A, resolution authorizing the village president to execute a budget revision to a grant agreement regarding congregate meals provided by the village of Wheeling. 11B, resolution authorizing acceptance of a publicity bid Sourcewell cooperative contract for a trailer-mounted Caterpillar diesel generator through Altorfer Power Systems in an amount not to exceed $89,889.30. 11C, resolution approving an engineering service contract with RUN Group Incorporated for sanitary sewer evaluation services in the amount of $75,000. Item 11D, resolution authorizing the village manager to waive a portion of the 2020-2021 video gaming terminal fees for Philip Carpenter Post 66 Amvets Building Corporation and not-for-profit entity.
Do we have any questions or comments about the consent agenda? If there are none, I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, trustee Papantos.
Second.
Second, trustee Rufato. Roll call, please.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. New business then, Clerk Simpson.
13A, ordinance amending ordinance number 3942, which granted for final plan unit development approval, special use site plan and appearance approval for plan unit development under Title 19 zoning, Chapter 19.29 and Section 19.40.040 for the Westin North Shore Hotel Retail Project at 751 North Milwaukee Avenue, docket number 2019-26A.
Should we read all these at once, or do you
Please.
want to, B and C also then?
Okay. 13B, ordinance granting a special use to permit a sit-down restaurant with a drive-through at 751 North Milwaukee Avenue, Outlot B, Westin PUD, docket number 2019-26B. Item 13C, ordinance granting major site plan and appearance approval for a multi-tenant retail restaurant building with drive-through lane and related site improvements, 751 North Milwaukee, Westin Outlet B, docket number PC 19-23.
This is Mr.
Yeah, I can introduce.
Robles. He's,
Yeah, our Assistant CD Director, Steve Robles, is on the call.
I was looking for the magic window to appear.
Which should be appearing in just a second. All three of these items do relate to the development of a development in Outlot B of the Westin North Shore for a 10,000 square foot multi-tenant retail restaurant building with drive-through. Effectively, item A is an amendment to the plan development. B is granting special use for an as-yet undetermined restaurant. And C grants revision for site plan approval. Mr. Robles, if you are there and have anything else to add, otherwise we could turn it over to the petitioner.
Nothing further at this time. Thank you.
It's all you. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Brett Webster, architect with Ware Malcolm, Oak Brook, Illinois, representing the property owners of the Outlot.
I'm not being rude. I just have to watch and see if anybody's waving to, it needs attention.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if staff was able to put up a presentation or you just wanted me to give a quick summary.
I think there it is.
Oh, fantastic. Let's see. So we've been working with staff on this for a little while, and our neighbors that are also part of this PUD property. And our client is very interested and very excited to create some additional tenant space on this property. We've endeavored to create the most flexible building that we could and be compatible with the surrounding properties and the ordinances required by the village for the development. So it's a fairly straightforward property, I believe. We have access from Milwaukee Avenue into the site. We're adding a driveway at the north. We have a drive-through lane on the east, and the drive-through window is on the north. We have access to the property from the hotel side, the east side, as well as connecting to the existing property to the south, both on the east and the west. And we've been working with staff and, like I said, the neighbor to try and maximize the traffic flow, the clarity of access to the drive-through. Our client has interest in several businesses that prefer and desire a drive-through use on this property. Here's our three-dimensional representation of the architecture that we feel is compatible with the village design criteria, as well as blending in with the neighbors and the other properties. There's a mix of brick and fiber cement materials here with some metal canopies and some lighting for nighttime safety and visual effects. Outdoor dining is proposed at the north and the south ends. Some two-dimensional elevations of the four sides of the building. We have a hypothetical floor plan for the special use for the drive-through restaurant. And then the rest of these documents are the preliminary civil engineering that supports the layout of the property. I won't go through everything here unless there's some specific questions. That's my summary of our presentation.
All right, Trustee Papantos, I saw you first, then Trustee Lang and Trustee Rufato.
Got to unmute. Thank you. Mr. Webster, right now you're proposing a drive-through type restaurant. How many other separate buildings, or is this going to be more built to suit? Would be part of the overall building?
There's room for 5, maybe 6 other businesses, depending on how narrow the owner would choose to divide up the property.
And on the south building, where they're showing outdoor seating, I'm assuming that would be for a restaurant, or are you just saying we're going to have outdoor seating no matter what?
There's the possibility that another restaurant could go in there, although that would have to be run through the staff as to whether that could be approved. We're showing that outdoor area right now as an amenity for the entire property. For code reasons, we can only make the building go so far to the south. So we have that open space there. We tried very hard to figure out a way to utilize it for parking, but it's a little bit too narrow. So we felt like rather than just having a very large landscape area, there could still be some landscaping there on that patio, depending on how the users want to decorate it. But it's not necessarily for a restaurant unless somebody really was interested and they could get that approved by the village.
And if a patron was to pull into the parking lot to the south, for lack of a better term, the building that contains Spears, would they be able to access your Outlot?
Yes, they're able to pass by the front of the Spears restaurant, parallel to Milwaukee Avenue, and continue north. But if they are looking to go to the drive-through, they would either come from Milwaukee along the north of the property and turn to the south, or they could come through from the Westin main entrance and be able to access the property from behind the building. Right now, the drive-through on the north end of this building is accessed through this driveway over here, and we've left that open so that people could continue north and utilize the parking on this property as well.
Okay, and one final question. Somebody who isn't using the drive-through and they exit onto Milwaukee Avenue, if they want to go southbound, do they have to go out to the light, or the far north entrance, is that a right out only?
Looks like.
At the north end of the property, they could make a left to go onto Milwaukee Avenue, but they could only go north on Milwaukee Avenue at that point.
That's what I was checking. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Trustee Lang, and then Trustee Rufato.
Thank you. My question is for staff, and it happens with 13B. I know the already applying a special use speeds up the process for the petitioner, but is this a bad precedent? I mean, we don't really know who will be in that location, and I'm just concerned that it might be something that we, I don't recall doing this before, so I'm not sure if this is wise, but if you know other, could you please fill me in?
Sure. This is something new, and it came as a result of situations we ran into at the town center where the town center had buildings that were already built. We knew where the location was, what the outside was going to look like, everything else. But then a restaurant coming in, such as Meat and Potatoes or Experience, still had to go through the special use process, even though everything regarding the exterior of the special use was already approved as during the PUD of the town center. So taking what staff learned there, we felt it would be a good opportunity to apply that here, since we know this proposal includes all the exterior improvements. We know the drive-through, we know where the layout of the drive-through is, we know the parking, we know the building exterior, outdoor seating, etc. We felt that we could apply that situation here. We have asked for a prototype site plan to establish a number of seats that we use to determine parking for this proposal and make sure that there's enough parking, not only for the retail component that's speculative at this point, but also for the restaurant. And so one of the conditions of the special use for the restaurant is dependent on that floor plan, and if there are substantial changes to that floor plan, including an entirely different layout, such as a completely different type of restaurant, or they've increased the number of seats that thus increases the parking, then it has to go through an amendment to that special use. So with the combination of all that, staff felt that this would be a good opportunity to take care of the zoning process so that on the back end, it would allow for a new incoming restaurant to go through that process a lot faster and go straight to an interior build-out permit rather than go through the zoning process where a lot of these elements that would be discussed aren't being discussed now.
Excellent explanation. Thank you, Steve. I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Trustee Rufato?
Thank you. So, Mr. Webster, one of the items, I was reviewing the minutes from the Plan Commission, was a discussion about a covenant and how the building construction has to go through some type of approval process with the other owners on this property. Where are you at on that process? And do you anticipate any issues with that?
We have shared our presentation with the property owners, both the building to the south, the restaurant in it, and also the hotel owners. And they are in general agreement. We had to make some adjustments in order to get this particular layout in front of you for consideration, along with some help from the staff. Just adding a couple of extra parking stalls. And they are in substantial agreement with our approach to the project. We expect that we will share with them the results of this discussion and then our more detailed plans before we get to the point of submitting it for a permit.
Okay. Thank you. And then this is a question for staff. In regard to this, I read the document. Do the other owners have any control over what can or can't be in this new building? For instance, Trustee Lang talked about the restaurant, the special use that we're approving. Do they have any control over that?
They do not have any specific control other than what is already in the covenants and the PUD, which the Westin PUD does have an already approved list of prohibited uses. So as long as one of those uses, which staff verifies as well, as long as one of those uses itself was not on that prohibited list, then the adjacent owner, Lot C, would not have really any say then at that point. Just given the way the covenants are written.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rufato. Do we have any other questions or comments from? Nobody's waving or jumping up and down. That's the case. I need to have, we're going to do these one at a time. So Clerk Simpson, please read Ordinance A again.
Read it again? Okay.
Please read A again, and then we'll have a motion for its approval.
Okay. 13A, ordinance amending ordinance number 3942, which granted finals plan unit development approval, a special use site plan and appearance approval for a planned unit development under Title 19 zoning, Chapter 19.29 and Section 19.40.040 for the Westin North Shore Hotel Retail Project at 751 North Milwaukee Avenue, docket number 2019-26A.
If there are no further questions, Trustee Papantos, is that a motion?
Yes.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
Trustee Rufato. Clerk Simpson, roll call.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
yes,
President Horker?
Yes.
Item 13B,
Yes, please.
ordinance granting a special use to permit a sit-down restaurant with a drive-through at 751 North Milwaukee Avenue, docket Outlot B, Westin PUD, docket number 2019-26B.
Any other questions or comments on this item? If there are not, I need a motion for the approval. Trustee Papantos, second.
Second.
Trustee Rufato,
Roll call.
roll call.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
yes,
President Horker?
Yes. And finally, C.
Item C, ordinance granting major site plan and appearance approval for a multi-tenant retail restaurant building with drive-through lane and related site improvements, 751 North Milwaukee Avenue, Westin Outlet B, docket number PC 19-23.
If there are no other questions or comments, I need a motion for approval. Trustee Vogel, second.
Second.
Trustee Krueger, you got it. Roll call.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Congratulations.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for including us in your business.
Thank you for being here.
Item D.
Item D,
Item 13D, ordinance authorizing the issuance of temporary emergency liquor licenses for the sale of alcoholic liquor by existing Class A, Class B, and Class C liquor licenses holders for off-premises consumption and/or delivery.
Mr. Spondelis.
Thank you. As discussed during the Liquor Commission meeting, this ordinance would allow for sales of off-premises consumption by Wheeling restaurants and taverns. While restrictions on their normal operations are in effect, I think the most important whereas in the ordinance is also the most explanatory. Under Section 3, the Board of Trustees authorizes during the duration of the gubernatorial disaster proclamation or until liquor licensees are allowed to operate at 100% capacity, the local liquor commission of the Village of Wheeling issues an automatic temporary emergency liquor license that will allow the sale or delivery of beer and wine or alcoholic liquor as applicable in conjunction with a food order by all subsets of Class A, Class B, and Class C liquor licenses in original sealed containers for consumption off premises. Again, we hope that this is an opportunity that our businesses, our restaurants will take advantage of and provide a little extra profit for them to keep them sustainable during these very treacherous times. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to approve.
I see Trustee Vogel has a question. Trustee Vogel?
Yes. John, will we have to rescind this ordinance at the proper time, or will it be automatically rescinded?
It's automatic.
It's a sunset provision, essentially. We can, for the record, state at an upcoming meeting that it's rescinded, just so we have it in the minutes. But it is a sunset. We won't know the date that it sunsets until we get a date in the future. So it's not a bad idea to put it into the record of our minutes.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Trustee Vogel. Any other comments or questions? If there are no comments or questions, I need a motion.
I moved.
Motion, Trustee Papantos, second Trustee Vogel. Roll call, please.
Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now for the tricky part of the evening.
Okay, 13F.
Yes, please.
Discussion regarding Governor Pritzker's Restore Illinois plan.
I would imagine everyone has comments on this. It's going to be a little tricky with everybody doing Zoom or whatever we're calling this. Who wants to start? I would like to run, let me just say this, I would like to run this more of a discussion as opposed to just a very formal portion of the evening. But given the format we have, I think we're still going to have to recognize one at a time. So I am going to watch the monitor. I will keep track of who's waving, and I will try to keep it moving. But we'll do the best we can with this. So who would like to start?
Well, Trustee Vito called for the discussion, I think.
Yeah,
Trustee Vito.
I'll start. Yeah, this is, been a big issue for me, and I have a problem with the governor, the powers that he's executing, the authority that he's executing it under, and I took kind of personal umbrage with something that he said last week on Wednesday. It was quoted in the Herald on Thursday. He made a quote, "I know leaders across the state are struggling with these choices, and I sympathize with them in that struggle. But what I don't have sympathy for are those so intent on disregarding science and logic and so afraid to tell their constituents what they may not want to hear that they are putting more people's lives at risk. You," meaning me, "weren't elected to do what's easy, you were elected to do what's right." And I just want to make clear that what's easy in this case is taking the majority position. The governor is fully aware of the poll that ended on May 4th, and that poll may have changed because May 5th is when Restore Illinois came out. But on May 4th, there was about 71% approval for his plan, for his shutdown, for the lockdown. What's not easy to do is take a position that's contrary to popular view. What's not easy to do is be accused of denying science, of having an utter disregard for safety and humanity, and just being chastised as a Neanderthal. I've been a conservative, philosophically all my life. I'm not crying about this. I'm used to it. We're constantly accused of being denied science, and Paul Ryan's going to throw grandma off the cliff. It's not new arguments. But I just want to make clear, this isn't easy. It's strained relationships, friendships I've had. The arguments are intense. I had one friend text me saying, "You're the only person I feel I can talk to honestly, because everyone else just jumps down your throat." So by any means, this isn't easy. The reason I have a problem with this is primarily the legal reason. The governor is working under the emergency powers under the Emergency Management Act. That's 20 ILCS 3305 Section 7. In that law, it says upon such proclamation, the governor may, by proclamation, declare that a disaster exists. Upon such proclamation, the governor shall have and may exercise for a period not to exceed 30 days the following emergency powers. Again, for a period not to exceed 30 days. The statute then goes on to enumerate those powers. We are now near 90 days after the original, I think we're past 90 days, after the original emergency proclamation. There is no competent way, no legal way, no statutory, correct statutory interpretation of that statute that would allow the governor to exceed that authority beyond 30 days. It would nullify the 30-day limiting language in that statute and make the statute null and void and make it meaningless. There are cases upon cases upon cases that say you cannot interpret a statute in such a way that would nullify its plain meaning. In that regard, the Wisconsin State Supreme Court made an analogy in striking down the executive order there, which would render, the analogy would render the same here. It says, for example, if a forest fire breaks out, there is no time for debate. Action is needed. The governor could declare an emergency and respond accordingly. But in the case of a pandemic, which lasts month after month, the governor cannot rely on emergency powers indefinitely. That same reasoning, that same logic, that same legal argument applies in Illinois. What the governor has argued is that he can, every 30 days, declare a new rolling disaster and reinstate his authoritative power. That is now not governing under law, that is governing under the rule of one man. That is impermissible. Even taking his argument, assuming arguendo, that's the correct argument, that he can do these rolling emergency declarations even for the same emergency. The Restore Illinois plan is now legislating or ordering in perpetuity certain restrictions on our freedoms. Phase 4 of the plan doesn't allow gatherings of 50 people or more unless and until there's a vaccine, an effective cure, or complete eradication. That could be never. There is no way the governor has the authority to legislate in perpetuity under emergency powers that are clearly terminated within 30 days. The problem that necessarily stems from all of this, not only is it just completely outside of his authority, but you start to have, when you ruled by one man, completely arbitrary and capricious laws and restrictions. Take, for example, the boating restriction. Now, these are all rooted in science, allegedly. We keep hearing, I'm following the science, I'm following the data. What is the science behind 2 people in a boat and not an entire family of, say, 4 or 5? So let's take this example. 2 guys can go in a boat. One guy works for Amazon. He's out every day delivering packages, potentially getting infected. Another guy works for Budweiser, delivering beer every day, potentially getting infected. These 2 guys who have been outside in potentially infected areas can get on a boat together and go fishing. An entire family of 4 that has been quarantined for the entirety of the pandemic cannot get in that same boat and go out in the sunshine and enjoy a day. However, if that boat is in their garage, they can all climb in it, clean it together, play, imaginary vroom vroom boat with the kids, whatever you want to do. It makes no sense. And so for someone who keeps telling us he's following science, there's no science in that. How about the golfing restriction? You can only have 2 people with 1 pull cart, and you have to bring your own pull cart. So I can go to Walmart, Jimenez, Fresh Farms, use their carts without a problem, but I can't go to a golf course and use their pull cart because they couldn't possibly wipe it down or have it just sanitized by the sunlight, which we know kills coronavirus, as it's sitting in the sun. What's the science behind that? The science behind 10 people in a church. All of the churches that have protested against this have said, we'll recognize social distancing, we'll wear masks, we'll sit 6 feet apart, we'll do all that. You can't do that in a church with a First Amendment protection of the freedom of religion and the freedom to exercise your religion, but 70 people can be at the Walmart on McHenry Road without a problem with masks and potentially not social distancing. There's no science behind that. So now we have this legislation that's governing us in perpetuity. And think about what that means. That phase 4, no gatherings of 50 people or more. That's not just Wrigley Field. That's any youth sports activity. If you have a youth sports game, you probably have 10 to 15 kids on a team, so call it 20 or 30 kids. Then you have the parents there. If each kid has 1 parent, and 20 kids or 30 kids, you're going over 50 pretty fast. You can't have a game like that with 2 teams there and with more than 1.5 or 1.3 family members to view it. That's it. It's over. There's no high school sports. There's nothing until there's a vaccine, a cure, or eradication. What's mind-boggling about all of this, and Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports went on a Facebook rant, the Chicago Tribune did an editorial echoing the same thing, is that this has completely moved the goalposts. And it baffles me that nobody seems to care. When we started on this, the goal was to flatten the curve. We all saw the graphs. There was a peak mountain, and then there was a light hill, and then there was a dotted line. And the reason we were doing this lockdown was to make sure we stayed below that dotted line, because that was the hospital capacity, the medical field capacity that we didn't want to cross. We never came close in Illinois to crossing that line. Now all of a sudden it's changed. I don't know why. More importantly, what I found completely amazing is before we start reopening, we took down McCormick Place. We essentially lowered that dotted line before we started giving people their freedom back. That made absolutely no sense. If the goal was to flatten the curve, why would you lower the line before you started reopening when you may need that capacity? Again, where's the science behind that? There's none to be found. The problem with all of this is now we're into this eradication mode and we have no end in sight. The governor said today in his daily briefing, he was asked by one of the reporters, do you plan on asking the legislature to clarify your authority and basically codify or legislate your executive powers? And he said, no, I think the current legislation is sufficient. I don't know how he can think that. When your limited power when your power is limited to 30 days, to not want the legislature to step in and codify that and clarify that is beyond me. We are now living under the rule of one person. And I've talked to other local leaders about this, and I've had conversations with staff about this. And there's some people that want to go ahead and defy the governor. I'm one of them. But the resounding response is, we're scared of the retribution. What kind of state are we living in where we're afraid to do what we feel is right as local officials because we're afraid that the governor's going to retaliate against us, that the governor's going to take our business licenses from our business license holders, that he's going to withhold federal funds? This is not normal. This is not a normal democratic society. This is becoming a dictatorship. That's the legal argument. The legal argument's pretty clear. He doesn't have the authority to do this. And quite frankly, I think if the legislature enacted the Restore Illinois plan, where they're limiting people to under 50 people in perpetuity, I think that would be unconstitutional as well. And I would urge this board, either way, if the legislature meets and codifies this plan, or if the governor keeps it, we should take legal action. To follow the science in this, you constantly hear the governor say, follow the science, I'm just following the data, I'm following the science. Well, let's look at his science. The first science he was following said the peak would be in mid-April, late April. Then he came out and said, no, it's going to be mid-May. Then he came out and said, no, it's going to be mid-June. What science are we following? Incorrect science? Imagine a similar scenario where you went to a doctor, you had an ailment, and the doctor said, you know what, take this pill for 3 or 4 weeks, come back, should be better. You go back 3 or 4 weeks, you know what, probably going to have this for another 3 or 4 weeks, keep taking that pill. And you come back the third time. At that point, are you going to at least reconsider whether the prescription is working and whether your doctor is completely off base? I would. I think we should here. And let's look at the data. There's so much data out there to keep saying follow the science as if it's a monolithic science that is completely irrefutable and that there's not a complete opposite study against lockdowns for every study that there is promoting lockdowns is to ignore the science and the data. Let's look at 4 states. We'll look at Illinois, Michigan, Florida, and Georgia. Illinois has 4,234 deaths. Michigan has 4,891 deaths. Florida has 1,973 deaths, and Georgia has 1,609 deaths. The population of Florida is twice the size of Michigan. The deaths are less than half. The population of Georgia is the same as Michigan, and the deaths are a third. What accounts for that? Georgia and Florida went into lockdowns later and got out earlier. Is it merely a factor of the weather? I don't know. But I don't get up every day and profess to have a monopoly on science that is crystal clear. Look at Illinois. Illinois has 4,234 deaths. Georgia has 1,609. The governor was asked about this. What's the discrepancy? He said, well, Georgia doesn't have an international city like we do. I'll take that as saying, okay, maybe population density is a factor. Then he said something completely absurd, which was, we also have more international air travel. Atlanta Hartsfield is not a reliever airport. It's often the busiest, if not the second busiest airport in the world. The second part of his argument is silly. But if you take the population density argument, it doesn't square with Michigan. Michigan's population density and Georgia's population, Georgia has a larger population density than Michigan, the same amount of people, and about 1/3 of the death count. How is that so? Look at Sweden. Sweden's often been in the news about this. Sweden, we passed Sweden in deaths about 2 weeks ago, and we're pulling away ahead of them every day. Sweden had 3,698 deaths, and they have about a population of 10 million people. They never went into lockdown. They did some distancing. Now, admittedly, their Scandinavian neighbors have done better, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. But the problem is, well, not the problem, the reality is when you compare them to Italy, Spain, Poland, the United Kingdom, Belgium, and France, they've done exponentially better. When you compare them to Michigan and Illinois with populations of 10 million and 12 million, they've done exponentially better. Maybe it's population density, it can't be the weather, we don't know. The science is not settled and we are governing, we're told every day, based on the science. How can that be? The models have been wrong, the science is up in the air, and it's time to remember why we got here. We got here to flatten the curve. We flattened the curve, and it's time to start reopening. As a final point, what worries me about this more than anything is just the collective toll it's taking on our national psyche. We have now become a germophobic, obsessive-compulsive society where I was walking down the aisle the other day at a store. I had a mask on. I'm walking down the aisle, and someone was walking the other way, and they bolted away from me as if I was a machine gun carrying viral spread. Where's the science in that? How am I going to contract this to you by walking past you, even with a mask on? And what's going to happen when the next pandemic comes, or not even pandemic, the next virus? We've had SARS, we've had Ebola, we've had swine flu, we've had all these things. Are we going to get into this crazy psyche again and lock down? It doesn't make sense. So what we need to do is realize what's going on here. We're being governed by someone without the authority. Our businesses are getting destroyed. There's over 30 million people unemployed right now. It's time to start reopening. The states that have, Georgia and Florida, so far, knock on wood, have not seen significant increases in hospital utilization or deaths. I think it's time we need to start moving forward in that direction. The governor's not going to let this go unless and until the political wills change. And talk about doing what's easy, mark my words. The minute the polling changes, and it's going to change, they're playing a short ball game. The minute the polling changes to 49% of people disapproving of his plan, that plan will vanish. The science will be gone, the science will change, it'll be over. But as for now, we don't know how long that's going to take because the people have been scared literally to death. So I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders not to do what's easy, as the governor encourages us to do, but to do what's right, to take action, to enforce the law, to become a village again that's ruled by the rule of law and not by the rule of man. And I think litigation is the only way to do that. If this doesn't cease, we need to seriously consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Vito. Responses? Crickets. Nobody.
Actually,
go
I
ahead.
have a comment.
Okay, I'll go Trustee Rufato, and then whoever else wants to just wave, please.
So, I've seen many of the resolutions that have come out, the memo from the Northwest Miss Conference, the resolution from Elk Grove Village, and my comment is around the litigation. And I was reading something in one of the IML emails that said that, well, the IML says that we should adhere to what Governor Pritzker is doing and saying. And that if we're considering litigation, we have to look toward our legal department and determine the impacts to the village. And also, I think it said even the elected officials. The elected officials I'm not too concerned with, but what is the ramifications there if we go down that path? Because the resolutions talk about, and in the email talk about reducing, the Northwest Municipal Conference didn't have reducing it from 28 to 14 days, but they did discuss the different regions. And I'm okay with those. But when it comes to litigation and a resolution, I'm just not okay with that. And I'm not sure what that impact would be to the village if we go down that path.
Thank you, Trustee Rufato. Trustee Papantos? Okay, Trustee.
Joe makes some very good points. You've obviously researched this, you're passionate about it. But we, as the Village of Wheeling, to take action to sue the government and say you can't do this is going to become a fight that I don't think we're going to win in the long run. And I think indeed it will hurt us. I would rather see the energy taken to reduce the time frame. And certainly, as you said, the phase 5 goal can be unreachable no matter what. That has to be relooked at. The governor is taking advice from people who are looking at the perfect world. Quite honestly, they're saying, you could get sick if you don't cross the street, you'll get hit by the bus. So just never cross the street. It's also not always practical. I think it's time that all municipalities, the entire state, goes in and says, we need to have a better representation of how this science is being interpreted. I also think that, they're numbers and we can all do whatever we want with numbers. Part of the goal is the reduction of the positivity rate, the number of positives based on the number of tests. If you look at the data really carefully, there's some counties that show up as 0. Well, it's because they haven't done any tests. So you can always go into that type of outlook too. There's ways to play with the science. There's ways to play with the numbers. But I do know that this infection is out there and it's not going away rapidly. But I think we need to talk reasonably with the governor, not threaten lawsuits at this point. I want to see businesses open as much as I think everybody does. We all want businesses to be open. We all want our kids to be able to go back to school in September. And we all want to be able to walk into a nursing home and visit a loved one, if that's the case. But until we know that it's safe, it is a hard call to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pontos. Trustee Krueger?
Thank you, Mr. President. And Trustee Vito, I totally appreciate your passion. And I wrote down some notes as you were sharing your research, and I am really grateful that you said the sentence, "This is not easy." I had written some notes too, knowing that we were going to talk about this together tonight. And what I know to be true is that never before have we been in this situation. We, and I mean we, this board and this leadership staff at the village, we have never been in this situation before. I also know that it's a complicated and difficult policy discussion whenever we talk about any phase. And I also know that good faith debate is good, and that I'm glad that we're talking about it. What do I speculate to be true? I speculate that we all don't want to see, we want to see this illness eradicated or effective treatment or a vaccine. I also speculate that we don't want to shelter in place anymore. But there has to be some middle ground. I feel like there's two patriotisms living on in this world right now. There's the, I want to open now and I'm a patriot because I'm not going to let anybody take my freedoms and tell me that I have to wear a mask or I have to shut my doors. And then there's the other patriots that say, I'm going to follow the public health recommendations and I'm going to wear a mask for the safety of others because I care about my colleagues or my fellow man. I was talking to someone who reminded me that zero risk is not possible. There's always going to be risk, and we have to be ready to take a risk. I think the village up to today has done what we can to help our businesses, even in their limited capacity of openness. I think anything else needs to have a really strong focus on the public health piece of it. Wherever we get our data from as a village, we need to make sure that the public safety aspect of it is good. The CEO where I work sends out something every single week to all of us. And I thought it was interesting that she wrote, an interesting element of human psychology is that we perceive the risks of here and now, what is in front of us today, to be much greater than more distant risks. But the real risks in front of us today aren't much different than the risks that are distant. So, most viruses don't just disappear. They end when people learn to adapt to this new normal. I'm not hearing enough discussion about what are the actual check boxes for how to reopen. That's what I'm not seeing from the state or the federal government. I want to see that list that says, if you're a daycare facility, this is how you should open safely. And if you're a restaurant, this is how you should open safely. And quite frankly, the essential grocery stores that are operating, sometimes I'm not seeing the enforcement of the new normal in those environments. Some people social distance, some people wear masks, some people do. I would love to see a grocery store in the middle of their Muzak that's playing in the store, throw in a couple of announcements that say, here at X, grocery store, we have your safety at heart. Please notice the arrows on the floor. Please make sure that you're maintaining a social distance. Sometimes these new rules have to be driven home and beaten into our heads so that we're doing it the right way. I'm not hearing enough talk about the public safety aspect of it, and I'd like to see us talk more about that than sort of fighting with the state. And certainly, like Trustee Rufato said, I just don't think, taking a spoon to a gunfight is smart. I just don't see, where threatening litigation ever gets you anywhere right off the bat. So I just want to find the middle ground, and I want the Village of Wheeling to be able to open with the public safety as its paramount focus. Thanks.
Trustee Krueger. Haven't heard from a couple of other trustees. Okay, Trustee Lang.
Thank you. Joe, it's hard to argue with a lawyer, right? You make very good points, and I appreciate your passion, like everyone else has said on this. We all have the same goal of reopening and get back to business. I don't think there's anyone, I haven't heard no one ever say that they like what's going on. There's nobody out there that likes staying in their house and wearing a mask and not being able to go to the bars or the restaurants. It's killing me. Okay, it's all this time that we've been locked down, it's killing me. But I'm doing it for a reason, and I feel that I'm doing it for the health and well-being of my loved ones, our fellow residents, and myself. And those are some of the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm told to do that because there is an invisible virus out there. But I know it's killing people. I see it. I see the numbers. Wheeling has huge numbers on this with this virus, and it's terrible. But again, I think a better approach would be, as the Northwest Municipal Conference stated, is there's suggestions put out. When you got to the lawsuit, you lost me. I don't think a lawsuit's going to do any good to the state. I'd only agree to a lawsuit on the state if you also agreed to sue the federal government, because I believe that there's failed leadership on the federal government side of things, big time. They threw everything to the states, and that's where a lot of these problems are coming from. All the states are acting in a different capacity. They should have gotten more leadership from the federal government. I think you can agree on that. But all I suggest for now is we do keep applying suggestions to the governor. One man should not govern all our thoughts and ideas, whether it's Pritzker or any other governor in the future. I believe that we're a society where many people speak for us, not just one person. But for now, I would suggest order local, still keep doing this, skip the third-party ordering apps and order direct from the business, and leave generous tips, because those tips go directly to the workers. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Trustee Vogel?
I heard a lot of different comments in the last 5 minutes or so. And while I agree with the majority of what Trustee Vito said, I don't think a lawsuit's the way to go. I'd love to see us be disjoined from the rest of Cook County and be an area unto ourselves. But what's to stop anybody from Chicago? I had a discussion with one of the other trustees. What's to stop anybody from coming in here? If we're opened and Chicago's not, what's to stop everybody to do the same thing they're doing right now in Northern Illinois? They're crossing the border, going into Wisconsin and in bars and in restaurants because they're opened up there. What's going to happen? We don't know. It's going to be a couple of weeks before we find out what happened with them opening wide open. For the safety of our residents, I just think that I agree with what Ray said at the end, Trustee Lang said at the end. Let's keep giving suggestions to the governor. I think he's listening. I really do. I think he's taken into consideration things. I think he's got a hell of a burden on him. He's worried about all 12,000 of us. We're worried about 40,000. Are our worries any less than his? No. But at the same time, I think we have to take into consideration that he is trying to work and trying to do the best thing I don't think it's political. I don't think he has a political agenda of any type. I think he is listening to the scientists, the doctors. I had a virtual physical a couple weeks ago, and my doctor, we talked about it for a half hour. He talked about me losing weight for 10 minutes, and after he got done with that, the rest of it was about this virus. And I mean, basically, he said it's something that he discusses with his colleagues, and they've never seen this before. And they've never seen it change overnight. The symptoms, the symptoms start out with 2 or 3, and now there's a dozen different symptoms. And he says, that's not a joke. That's reality. He says, they're starting to find out more and more. And he says, that's good, because the more they find out, the quicker they can attack it and the quicker they can solve it. And his professional opinion, and basically what a lot of his colleagues think, is that there's going to be they're going to find something for this, and it ain't going to take years. He figures by the end of the year, there's either going to be a vaccine or there's going to be something that you can take just to calm it down and bring it down to the common cold type of thing. Nothing more than a mild case of the flu. So again, I'm against the lawsuit. I don't think it does any good. Even the threat of one at this point in time. If this continues and he keeps pushing us, I'd reconsider it a month from now, 60 days from now. But right now, I'd just like to, follow the CDC and let's get this thing over with. Thanks.
Trustee Vito, would you like to respond?
Yeah, the biggest contention I have with this, of course, is the lawlessness of it. Maybe I read too many Revolutionary War biographies of people and don't really like executive power, or what I see as regal power, being executed here. The notion of eradication and all that, saying that this is a serious virus and people are dying, and that was baked in the cake. No one's denying that. The problem was, when we started this, they said this is to flatten the curve. This first order, the first shutdown, was supposed to end April 9th. Now we're into mid-May, and we have no opening of anything substantial until the end of June if we do everything that we want, everything correctly, and the numbers turn out it's sufficient for the governor to say, okay, now you can have restaurants with limited capacity. And the reason I push the lawsuit, and I think there might be a misunderstanding here, isn't we file a lawsuit, we throw our doors open and let the governor, come after us and put people in liability. We file a lawsuit. If we win the lawsuit, the governor's order is null and void. The governor's authority is gone. He can't do anything. And Chicago can open, and, well, I don't know about Lori Lightfoot's ruling, but I would assume Chicago can open and everybody else can open if they want to. I have been watching the governor every day. I'm sorry to admit this, but he has been living rent-free in my head for about the last month or so. And I don't think he has any desire to work with anybody that's going contrary to his plan. The whole let's get out of the Cook County Zone 1 thing, that's been asked by the press reporters about 17 times. The same answer has been, well, people from the collar counties and from the suburbs travel into the city, they'll transmit the virus, that's why we have Region 1, we're not going to change it. That's what he said, he's going to keep saying it. I don't think any ask we're going to do, as long as the political will is still with him, I'm hoping polls come out to show that start to recede, given the severity of this reopen plan and its 28-day time frames. We have probably the harshest, maybe next to Michigan, harshest reopen plan out of 50 states. It's amazing. We don't have the worst numbers. We're up there, but we don't have the worst numbers. And it just doesn't make sense that the shutdown is the answer. Like I said, how do you square Florida and Georgia? Is it weather? Is it population? Both of those populations are different. Florida's a huge state with a big population density, major cities. I don't know, maybe it is the weather. They also have an older population in general, so you'd figure there'd be more deaths, more nursing home deaths. On top of all of this, I think the strategy should change, like I said before, to not just a complete lockdown, but to start focusing on the vulnerable population. We know this is from the IDPH, 44% of the deaths, 44%, nearly half, are people 80 years and older. 67% of the deaths, 2/3 of the deaths, are people 70 years and older. 86% of the deaths are people 60 years and older. Out of all of those people, 92% of those deaths are with people with underlying conditions and comorbidities. I think we can start focusing, and we can't say that this is too drastic because what we're doing now is the ultimate drastic plan. I think we can start focusing on opening and making sure those people are protected and making sure that they understand the risks that they may run by going back out into society. Conversely, under 20, there have been 3 deaths in the entire state. 3 deaths, not 3%, 3 deaths. The notion that we are not going to open the schools is beyond me in August, to even consider that. I understand we don't want to get teachers infected, we don't want kids to bring it home to grandparents. There's even debate on that science, whether or not the kids transmit the virus as much as people are saying. Fauci himself admitted, I really don't know. It's still up for debate. But we need to start thinking about reopening. We need to definitely have schools in August. I hope District 21 and District 23 push for that. And we need to just start getting back to normal and realize the virus is bad. It's a horrible virus, but the reality is it's bad for a very small set of people. And it's time to start focusing on that small set of people and moving forward with getting back to normal. And I'll quit beating this horse. Thank you.
Yield the floor to Trustee Lang.
Yeah, so I think Sarah Palin talked about it at one point, death panels, you know? Joe, it almost sounds like, unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying, to sacrifice our aging population, that's nuts. I don't understand. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you. I hope I am.
Yeah, I'm saying the exact opposite. I'm saying shelter them, quarantine them, protect them, identify them, segregate them, do whatever needs to be done to keep them safe, instead of pinning down the rest of society while we do that. We know what groups of people are most susceptible to this. We know where they live for the most part, in nursing homes. So why don't we focus our attention on that, as opposed to not letting, you know, a guy like me, 40 years old, which is 5% of the deaths, 40 to 49, is 5% of the deaths from 49 down. So if you're under 50, 5% of the deaths are under 50 in the state. Meanwhile, that's out of 0.03% of the entire state population that has passed away from this. We are talking about a very small amount of people that have succumbed to this percentage-wise. I understand it's a big number, just gross. But I think there's a way we can start doing this. I think we need to start doing this, or else we're going to lose everything. I mean, when are we going to start flattening the unemployment curve? At 30 million people, that's a 25% unemployment rate. That's like the Great Depression. I mean, there's going to be all sorts of health effects from that. I saw some number, and I don't know if it's accurate, that had a factor of suicides and deaths based on each percentage point of the unemployment rate. I don't know if anything's true anymore. But if that's the case, there's going to be a lot of problems. And you can certainly see ODs increasing, domestic violence increasing, alcohol abuse increasing, and suicide. The suicide hotlines have been blowing up. There's a lot of problems with this. And I think what we've been doing isn't working. How many times are we going to move the peak? How many times are we going to say, oh, well, we're going to keep doing this, keep doing this, keep doing this, when there's other examples in the world where they did much less on the restriction side and had a much better outcome. It's hard to say, looking at those numbers, definitively, shutdown's the answer, shutdown's a prescription for what ails you. That's not conclusive at all.
Well, we're gonna learn a lot about in 2 weeks about Wisconsin and how that all went for them.
I see you, Papentos.
And Georgia as well. I mean, Georgia, when did they open up? Last week?
No, 3 weeks ago, and they were doomed to death by the media saying that we'll mark the day 3 weeks later, and people on Fox News, of course, did, and then rubbed it in their face and nothing happened. Knock on wood, that's not definitive, but Georgia's been doing okay. I don't know about Wisconsin.
Those trends continue. I mean, let's hope that there isn't a problem in Wisconsin, and you know, and we can start opening up based on some of that data.
Let's hope.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Trustee Vito. Trustee Papantos, please.
Thank you. Just a couple points. You talk about Georgia, but you know, we can also talk about Texas that has opened up and seen a rapid increase. You know, and what's going to happen there? Once again, it's a lot easier to social distance in areas of Texas than it is in Illinois. You also in worrying about the 60 plus, thanks. I don't know where I'll be quarantined for the rest of my life. A lot of your board will not be with you there, Joe. But we also have to look at some of the other populations. If you look at the numbers in this area, it's not so much going with the state numbers. I believe the highest percentage in Wheeling is 50 to 59-year-olds, and it's also Hispanic community. So there's so many factors in here, and unfortunately, we just don't know how it's working. I would love to be on the panels that are talking to the governor. I think they are overdoing it, but I don't think a lawsuit is really the answer to the question.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. I think we've whipped the horse long enough. I might as well chime in because why should I be left out? What's the worst that could happen? My personal opinion on this whole thing is that there's a science basis for this, but there are many times I feel it's being filtered through politics. I do feel we are responsible for the well-being of our residents, but I feel it's that we are basically under the thumb of the governor. When you hear him give the briefings, it's the comment that I liked was he doesn't have to send in sheriffs. There's plenty other means of enforcement. It's very polite, very simple, and very scary, which strikes me as a very scary way of governing. But it is the world that we're currently living in, and so my position on this is that, okay, these are the rules we're living under, and he's coming up with programs that are designed to try to help grab as much of it as we can and try to help as many people as we can, given the situation we're in. I don't agree with a lot of what's going on. I do see a lot of the contradictions that you mentioned, and it does bother me, but unfortunately, we are kind of bound by what's going on at a higher level, where, as someone mentioned, there is a lack of definitive, this is what the country's going to do. This is what, this is the direction that you have, not the idea that we're going to make these recommendations and then ask you to try and enforce them against First Amendment right, freedom of assembly, right, freedom of religion. They're valid, fascinating arguments, but in the meantime, time is ticking along, and it is costing money while they argue. It is costing sanity while you're locked in your home, and it's costing peace. I believe in science, and I believe in keeping our residents safe, but I believe we have to do the best we can without injuring the village financially and just our situation for our businesses relative to what the state could or couldn't do. And the insurance companies fall into play in this as well, where there's a question, okay, if we do decide to go ahead and tell our businesses, you know what, Wheeling's going to open, you do whatever you like. Well, if they're not going to be insured and even just a slip and fall, what's going to happen? There's too much, sorry, Joe, there's too much law that's going to be leveraged against the term that I really have become fascinated with. There's too much law against going rogue for me to feel comfortable going that direction. I am much more interested in if the governor is saying, we're going to do all of this for you, fine. I want all of it. I want all of our businesses to get all of the money they can get from the Small Business Administration, and I'm tired of hearing about loans, okay? I'm tired of hearing about banks offering low-interest loans. The banks that we gave billions of dollars to because they were too big to fail, and now they're going to offer these better interest rate loans. Well, how about just rolling my mortgage payments over to the end of the mortgage for the next 3 or 4 months? We gave you a pile of money, buckets that you don't know where it went. Well, time to share.
And as far as the Hispanic community in our town, we do have a higher concentration of Latino infection. And here's the advertisement. Fill out the census so we can educate everybody, so we can get the money to help every portion of our population. The one thing I know absolutely sure about this is in 5 years, everybody's going to know exactly what we should have done. But right now, we're going to have to do the best that we can. I would be against legislation, but I am all in favor of taking every penny the governor says we're entitled to and helping everybody in our town that we can. And I'm going to end it right there because I can. Thank you all for your comments. And I think it was very good to get this out. There were some people that didn't like the idea that we were going to even be discussing this. How can you possibly be against discussion now that you know where everybody stands? Never be against discussion. So, that brings us to Clerk Simpson, official communications.
Hi, this coming Monday is Memorial Day, Monday, May 25th. Unfortunately, in light of current restrictions, AMVETS Post 66 has canceled its annual Memorial Day parade.
Think of it anyhow. Do something nice for them. No, really, I mean, Memorial Day, I was probably the best Confederate invention ever. Research it. Any other official communications?
Mary P.
Well, okay, Mary. Trustee Papantos, I'm sorry.
You're on mute, Mary.
Unmute.
Mary, you're on mute.
No, she's,
You're still muted.
There she is.
I'm showing on mute.
There you go. Yeah.
now
Okay,
you are.
now you are.
Okay, I'm slow to react. We have heard from two individuals regarding the PR company representing CEA, which we are co-owner with of Prospect Heights. The facts and the evidence are out there. I'm embarrassed that we don't know this. And I have to agree with Mr. Fadden. I think it's time to, at the very least, let Chairman Harris know that this action should have been more transparent, that, hiding it and saying, I didn't vote on it or I wasn't there, he knew. And it's disturbing that we're playing a game with semantics at this point. I would love to entertain a conversation with our co-owners, Prospect Heights, and see what they feel about this. Do we just want to let it ride? I believe on Wednesday, Mr. Rogers' contract is going to be renewed. Last time I looked at extended, when I looked at the agenda for the airport, sitting back and pretending that we don't have to do anything is not the right way to go. I think the airport, as far as Mr. Chairman Harris, needs to be more transparent with us, and we, the owners, should take some responsibility on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Is that Trustee Lang, were you waving? Trustee Lang?
Yes. So to Mary's point, I'm not sticking up for Court Harris or any of the other board members. I do know for a fact that was a position that was hired in by Jamie Abbott, executive director. I don't know if there were any other details surrounding that, but I had talked to two attorneys about this. I talked to our village attorney, Perillo, and to our airport attorney, Lester. And both of them said that there was nothing wrong in this hire. And I have to go with that, with what the attorneys say. I talked to them both, and Jim, if you can
First of all, this isn't a contract that's under the jurisdiction of this board. This is a contract that's controlled by the airport board. We have no control over who they contract with. Regarding my opinion on this, this came to me after the fact last year, and I did talk to the attorney for the airport, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't smell good. It's something that probably should have been avoided. But from a straight legal analysis, was there a statutory conflict of interest? The question would be, does Chairman Harris profit from this contract? Does he benefit financially from this contract in any way, shape, or form? If the answer to that was yes, which we really have no way of knowing, but I've been assured that the answer is no. But if the answer to that were yes, then he would face a statutory conflict, which is a criminal conflict. I'm told that the answer to that's no, so that wasn't an issue. Then it diverts to a common law conflict. He knew this, Mr. Rogers. They were partners. What Court Harris did, in my understanding, he didn't vote on this contract, like any common law conflict, just like we had today, where Trustee Vogel abstained. Not exactly the same, but you pull out of the discussion. You don't benefit financially, but because there is some connection, he didn't vote on the contract, didn't talk about the contract, didn't try to convince, at least publicly, his airport commission fellow board members to enter into the contract. The common law conflicts addressed as well. So while it's something that I don't think any of us think was a good idea, from a legal standpoint, which is what I was asked last year, I don't think it breaks any law. So that's a little clarification on my opinion.
Thank you. Trustee Papantos, you have a comment?
Just one more comment, and I understand that no laws were broken, but it's the appearance of impropriety that I am concerned with. And if Chairman Harris and Mr. Rogers had been open from the get-go on this, people would not be bringing it up. And I'm not saying, he should be, tried in a court of law. He did everything legal, but I feel that it was sneaky, and I do feel that we have been bamboozled. It's embarrassing to have to sit and listen to citizens bring it up and say, what's going on? Is this really for the betterment of the airport? And I just wanted to put it out there that, yes, we as a board do listen to citizens' concerns and comments and, understand that this is something that is bothering people. Thank you.
And for the record, the chairman doesn't vote at our meetings except for a tiebreaker. So he's not even voting on, he didn't vote on the original contract. He won't vote on the renewal options coming up this week.
He also should refrain from participating in discussion. Trustee Lang.
Thank you. Trustee Kruger, was that a wave or was that, you're muted, Trustee Kruger.
Yeah, thanks. I just have a question. Does this board and the governing body of Prospect Heights, as the corporate authorities, do we have authority over the chairman of the airport's performance?
Yes, you can, you appoint the chairman and you can remove the chairman. It's a joint action by Prospect Heights and Wheeling to do so. So the answer to that is yes.
But those are our only options, hire and fire? There's no sanctions or some sort of,
Reprimand.
a reprimand for, for the appearance of impropriety that, perhaps if both corporate authorities feel that way, maybe there should be some reprimand or action.
I think it's certainly within your discretion to formulate a reprimand that you deem as appropriate for the chairman. That's not something that you're prohibited from doing, but you do have the ultimate control of appointment and removal. Anything in between, I think, is completely discretionary.
Great. I just think then that, perhaps Trustee Papantos's idea of, seeing what our partners feel about this situation, maybe it'll turn into something that can just be, it can be discussed with him so it doesn't happen again. Thanks.
I would certainly think he would realize he shouldn't do this again. Legal but stinks does not seem like a very strong endorsement of an activity. Any other comments? I will talk to Mayor Helmer tomorrow, or I'll call him. I hope he calls me back. Any other comments or questions?
Not on this
Mr.
topic.
Spondylus.
I have a new topic to introduce quickly.
Oh, please.
Obviously, it is a very serious thing, so I wanted to just get concurrence from the village board before taking any action.
Oh, yeah.
But considering, the state of affairs, I think it's time for us to consider canceling this year's Rock and Run event. It was previously postponed to August 22nd. Looking at the Restore Illinois plan, it doesn't seem that there's really any logical way that we would be able to safely hold a large gathering such as the Rock and Run event. So I think at this point, it's time for me to look at contracts and just call it a day for this year. So just looking for concurrence from the village board. I did reach out to the airport and the city of Prospect Heights, at least the administrative staff, and they concur with canceling for this year.
So then I'm going to just poll, Trustee Papantos?
Just one question, will this cost us any money with any of the contracts?
We have had a conversation with our fireworks distributor who has graciously said that they would transfer the contract to next year. We believe we have out clauses in the rest of our contracts so that the answer to your question would be no.
Thank you.
So then I would like to poll the board. Trustee Vito, since you're here with us.
I'm holding hope that Cabello's lawsuit overturns the governor's order and we have a party. So I'm going to say no, keep it.
There we go. Trustee Kruger.
Question, Manager Spondylus, even if we didn't have the event, could we still blow off the fireworks somewhere?
We would still have to shut down the airport, so I think it would be a matter of risk and reward just for the cost and effort of shutting down the airport.
Yeah, it'd probably draw a bunch of people over that way too.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm in a cancel mode, thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Kruger. Trustee Vogel?
Cancel.
Trustee Rufato?
Cancel.
Trustee Papantos?
Cancel.
Trustee Lang?
Yeah, unfortunately cancel, but maybe double down next year.
Let's see.
Double down what?
Double down next year, I think. I think he means like the fireworks. Let's see what happens with our budget next month when we start seeing what this is doing.
Yeah.
Double the number of beer trucks.
There you go. I'm also for cancel.
Thank you.
Better luck next time, Trustee Vito.
Maybe Oktoberfest in Munich in the parking lot.
There you go. You have before you, in some form or another, the bills for April 30th through May 13th, 2020. I need a motion for their approval.
So move.
Trustee Vogel, second. Trustee Kruger, roll call, please.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, also, we do have an executive session this evening. We will be employing our new method of not coming out of executive session after. So we will be having an executive session this evening for the purposes of pending, probable, and/or imminent litigation and personnel, including appointment, promotion, dismissal, compensation of a specific employee or official. That being read, I need a motion to recess into executive session and adjourn the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Actually, I got to hear Trustee Vito do the motion, so I'll give the second to Trustee Papantos. That's why I'm pointing that way. See?
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Rufato?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again shortly. fairly smooth.